Good, good afternoon. Welcome to News in Nigeria TV. Yes, it's a lovely Sunday, and yes, this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, wherever you are, we welcome you. We'll be discussing about the African democracy, why the African democracy seems to be failing. And this afternoon, we'll be focusing on Kenya and Nigeria as a use case study. In the last 3 weeks, we saw the demonstration by the Kenyan people. What the Kenyans have done is a show of strength. What the Kenyans have done, indeed, is what we call democracy in its highest show of force. So this afternoon, I'm going to be having two different guests. With me, I'm going to have the first person will be King Duro Timidaudu, a very popular influencer, a political revolutionary from Nigeria, a youth indeed. And this is a man who seeks for good governance. This is a man who has zero tolerance for corruption. And this is a man who has always called out the Nigerian people from their docility. Because as it were, Nigerians are prone to be the most docile in Africa, if not the world. But of course, we like to use the word we will tolerate. We like to use words like we will adjust. Because Kenyans haven't gotten their president to apologize, which is unprecedented. They got their president to come on his space to speak with them. This is a man who, before now, hardly interacts with the people. But because the Kenyans, they took it upon themselves that we are the people. Democracy is run by the people. Democracy will only thrive when the people are engaged. Democracy will only thrive when the people are active. Democracy will only thrive when the people willingly, consciously, intentionally march against every anti-people policy. And the country, the biggest democracy in East Africa, Kenya, has demonstrated that to us as Nigerians. The question today is, can the Nigerian people, can they save their democracy? Because I know if the Kenyans had kept quiet and they have allowed Ruto, charter the country the way he wants, then their own democracy would have been under threat. Because democracy becomes risky when the people do not engage. The difference between democracy and aristocracy, should I say imperialism and all that, is the people don't have a say. The people cannot speak against the governments. Nigerians haven't experienced more than 16 years of military rule. We know what it is. We know what it is, how democracy should have been run. But however, we are not we are not demonstrating that willpower as the people to fight for our democracy. So this morning we have some topics, some very nice topics. So when our guests come on board, we're going to ask him some very salient points. That what is democracy to us as Africans? Is democracy alien to us? Why do we find it so difficult as a continent? As a continent, why do you find it so difficult to manage a democracy? In fact, I have seen my countrymen seeking for military to come back. I have seen my countrymen asking, begging that the military regime should come back, that the military regime was more favorable. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? In a military democracy, we cannot have this YouTube webinar we're about to have now, this YouTube interview. We cannot under a military regime. Under a military regime, we cannot have what we call press freedom. Otherwise, I would have been imprisoned because I am against the government of the day in my country, Nigeria. So many well-known journalists today will be a refugee in another man's country. But again, the people must take ownership of their democracy. But it seems that Africans do not understand what democracy actually is. So this begs that question. What is democracy to Africans? Why is it that the Africans find it so difficult to manage democracy? In South Africa today, we understand their democracy is still pretty young, but we can see that the whites still have a very large majority influence in their democracy. We can see that the white folks now are still well interfering with the governance of our country. In West Africa, we see that the supposed giant of West Africa has an issue with our democracy. That is Nigeria that I am talking about. The only things that makes a democracy thrive is when the people can, without any notification to the police, when they feel their governments or their governors or their presidents are underperforming, they hit the streets and go on a peaceful protest without being apprehended or being maimed or killed. The people, even when they are being apprehended, they do not get deterred. Nigerians and Kenyans, we have so much similarities. But in the recent time, I think the Nigerians are falling short on what we call nation building. Our Gen Zs in Nigeria today, who are supposed to be leading the charge with the millennials, they are all into all manners of vices. I didn't expect the Kenyans to still go ahead with their protest when we started seeing snipers taking people's head off. But instead, that even charged them the more. These people even got more activated. Immediately that happened, these guys, they got vexed. In the last video we did, that was a day ago or 2 days ago, a Kenyan came on that video and he commented, he said that yes, we have always seen Nigerians as our big brothers. And we still see them as our big brothers, but now we see them as big brother in music and entertainment and maybe science and engineering. But in politics, they think they are doing better. And I agree with that. 100% I agree with that. That in music, yes, we might be leading. But in politics, we, the Nigerian youths, are so ignorant, yet very arrogant about it. So why is Africa? Why are the leaders of any democratic nation in Africa, most especially in West Africa and East Africa, always tyrannical? They don't respect, they don't give a damn, they don't care, they don't have this love for the people. That audacity, Petrus. The Western world, is it the Western nation that is controlling them, or the people who are ignorant, who don't speak up when they should? Because my worry is when we fail to speak as the people in the democracy that we think we practice, then we will fall under what we call civil autocracy. Yes, we will fall by what we call civil autocracy. It doesn't matter whether we have our religious or ethnic differences. Why? We, the people who are collectively suffering under this administration of Tinubu, why are we so quiet? Why can't we all march out and speak against the bad governance? Why are we so comfortable? If you protest or you don't protest, one day you will eventually leave this sinful world. So what is your excuse? The Kenyans. In fact, the one thing that busts my head about the Kenyan is this very same Gen Zs that supported Ruto when he was about to be, manipulated out after the election are the same guys who are today leading, charging a protest against him. How interesting. Like, for real, how interesting. But yeah, in back home in Nigeria, it doesn't matter if you have voted for him or not. Those who voted for Tinubu are not getting fuel cheaper. I mean, they are not getting their bread cheaper. But because of their ignorance, they feel in a democratic setting, you just allow your leader have a leeway and it does anyhow. No, because every human being have a tendency, when they are not being checked, to lose guard. When a man is not measured in his actions, he will go astray. And this is what is happening with Tinubu. When Tinubu is not being charged, when the president of Ruto, if he wasn't charged, if he wasn't called out, if the Kenyans at this very moment are not still speaking against him, he wouldn't have canceled that finance bill. Indeed, today, I believe Ruto has cut the cost of governance. Some few minutes ago, I was in a meeting, I was in a space on X. An honorable was telling us that cutting cost of governance is almost impossible. Yes, it will say that in Nigeria because the Nigerian people have not spoken. Because the Nigerian people have not hit the street. Because the Nigerian people are still very docile, gullible, yet arrogant. We are still praying for good governance. We are still hoping that a Messiah will fall from heaven and go to Azoroth and everything overnight will change. No, it's gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. That is never gonna happen. Because democracy as defined is what? The government of the people. Is a government for the people. And it's a government by the people. In Nigeria, are the people responsible? Are they active? Are they doing what they should do? And in this instance, the people are not the 1,000 in the government. They are not the National Assembly members. No. The people here is the over 200 million Nigerians who are under this hardship. The people are those who cannot confidently walk on their street or travel on their roads in the night anymore because they might get kidnapped and they have to pay millions in naira as ransom. But then why are they silent? Who should we blame? Who should we blame for this? We shouldn't blame the president. The president will, as far as it's concerned, right, will think he is doing well. You know, he will feel he's doing well, provided the people do not speak up. Yes, with me here, I have a billionaire farmer who has joined us all the way from Nasarawa, Gate. Mr. Rexon, I don't know if you can hear me. Your screen is blank. Welcome, sir. Yes, Mr. Rexon, good day, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Welcome to this, very brief interview. You have a very beautiful farm there, sir.
Yes, I'm outside.
That's very beautiful. You know, one of these days I'll try as much as possible to pay you a visit. You know, I'm in Lagos here, and
Yeah.
I'm about to go into farming. You know,
Okay.
I have a plot and a half in Igbesa, Ogun State,
Okay.
and I want to go into tomato and how we call it here in Yoruba, atarodo. We call it, I think, pepper chili. I don't know what they call it
Okay.
in English. You know, I want to go into that farming, that which is
Okay.
tomatoes and pepper. You know, I'll probably pay you a visit. And of course, this is the convener. This is the founder of the Agba token. For those, wherever you are joining us from all over the world, you know, we need to have an agricultural revolution. And Mr. Reston is the man who is ready to lead that charge because, of course, he has been able to revolutionize Nasarawa to an extent. Now he's seeking for more Nigerians, well-meaning Nigerians who are ready to invest in agriculture. When you is ready to do the job, all you need to do is invest in Agba token. And of course, your financial freedom will be assured because he has been tested. This is a man who worked with under the Buhari scheme of the farmer. I can't recall now when they had their scheme. You know, he benefited from it, and he's still standing. Behind him, you can see a
Yeah.
very large plantation there. I think that is behind him. I think that is, if I'm not mistaken, these are palm kernels. You know,
This
red
these are
oil.
palm plantation.
You
Yes.
know, most of these things are almost got into the stage of maturity. These are the kind
Yeah.
of
So
people. These are the kind of people
we are
we need
currently
in government.
harvesting.
These are the kinds of people we need in government. Mr. Rexon, I know Nigerian, if we ask them that Mr. Rexon wants to go out to become the president, they will tell him he should probably go back to his hometown and start building boreholes. Unfortunately, this is where we
Absolutely.
find ourselves. So, Mr. Rexon, welcome again.
Thank you.
Yeah, quick. So we start wasting your time because I know we just have a short time to spend together. Today, I want us to talk about democracy in Africa. I want us to talk about good governance. But we will use Kenya as a case study. Why do we have an issue as Nigerians in defending our democracy? Let me start with that first question. Why is the biggest democracy in Africa? Why is it being threatened today?
Hello?
Because the people who seem to be lost. Yes, sir, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, sir. So why is it that Africa seems not to be able to manage its own democracy? And why is it that in Nigeria today, Nigeria happens to be the biggest democracy in Africa? Why is it that the people, because any democracy will only thrive when the people are actively involved,
Yes.
when they are ready to hold their governors,
yes,
their president accountable.
absolutely.
I mean, we can see what's going on in Kenya. So what's the issue in Nigeria? Because our democracy is under threat. The people seem not to be interested anymore in democracy. What's the issue? You have the mic, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. What I would say primarily, what Kenya has taught us is that we're sitting on a time bomb. What Kenya has taught us is that because the leaders in Africa have failed or are failing, it is going to take the people, it is going to take the ordinary people, the strength to be able to change their system. Now, has democracy worked in Africa? No. Democracy has not worked in Africa. I always say that one of the challenges of the African development and state today is the short tenure democracy. And the reasons are very simple and straightforward. Imagine, I'm going to use Nigeria as a very critical example. We just elected Asiwaju 2023, just last year. He has just completed 1 year in office. And what is the shatter here all around you? 2027. You see, you have not done what you told the Nigerian people you are going to do. So we're talking about 2027. And what are we talking about with regards to 2027? We're talking about the Yoruba nation. Yorubas are all of a sudden who did not even vote for him, because we really would look at the election. The Yorubas didn't vote for Asiwaju. If you context.
That's
Now
true.
you're already saying it's our own. We are going to, if this country wants to break, let it break. We are going to make sure we get him there the next time. So we forget about the issues and focus on the sentiment and things that are actually not important. And so what needs to change is, like I said, is either leaders are ready to change the process by focusing more on what I call benevolent dictators in a democratic system. And I'm talking about Lee Kuan Yew. I'm talking about Vladimir Putin. Those are the example of democracies. I'm talking about Paul Kagame, of course, our own Paul Kagame here. Those are the example of democracies that Africa should look at. Democracies that are primarily foundation on economic nationalism. Economic nationalism. Focus on your people and their interests first and foremost. Democracies that are not only foundation on economic nationalism, but focus on the interests of the people first. What am I saying? If your democracy does not put Nigeria first, it is not good democracy. As far as we are concerned, we should scrap it. How do you focus on the people first? Nigeria is 200 million people. Over 200 million people, right? And
Yeah.
I'm a farmer, so I'm coming from that angle. 40 million arable hectares of farmland. When we talk about arable hectares of farmland per capita, per population, we have one of the best arable hectares of arable ratio in the world to the population that we have. 70 million hectares of land. And of all of this, less than 25% of it is being cultivated. So when our democracy should be focused on how do we get Nigerians, our people, to come home, right? To focus on what we can do locally. So grow your people from within. Forget about what the West tell you. But the democracy we're practicing is literally a democracy and a system of government imposed on our people. In other words, they know that democracy is chaotic. And in chaos, the West can always have their way. So they will encourage you to be democratic, to be chaotic, so that they can always control you. Anything that makes you structural, anything that gives you control, anything that puts you in charge does not impress them. I'm going to give you another example, which is why I feel that our leaders are either evilly driven or they are selfishly directed to not focus on our people. And once democracy does not have internal control and internal capacity for primarily local content, it is not democracy. It is simply us standing as stooges for the Western nations for them to keep plundering our Commonwealth, our raw material for their own development and growth. Look at Dangote, for example, because this is where democracy. Sometimes they give us the impression that no, democracy is governed by the people, let the elected people speak. The economic blah blah speak all the English in the world. Dangote is an African. He's a Nigerian who saw that we're having challenges with regards to oil. Only two countries in Africa refine their oil: Morocco and Libya. Libya has been ravaged and destroyed. Morocco is practically a European state because they're very close to Europe. So Europe will want their refineries to take off because they can always supply. It is easier for Morocco to supply Europe than to supply the rest of Africa. So the Morocco oil is not an African oil. Gaddafi, who stood against them, was killed. Now, Dangote now built a refinery for Africa because it's situated in Nigeria. If you look where Nigeria is situated, we can actually connect to all part of Africa. We can connect to the north, connect to the south, connect to the east, all of Africa from Nigeria with the refinery. And that refinery is capable of feeding not only Africa but part of the world. What is happening to him? He cannot get crude oil. Why? Because the Western companies that run the Nigerian crude oil state wouldn't want him to have crude oil because they know that for what is what, that is for the interest of the Nigerian people and the African states. So the democracy we currently operate is not a democracy system, right? A system that imposed on our people for their own benefit. And that is where the challenge lies. So the democracy you currently operate doesn't think of the African people first. If the democracy is not good, when we say democracy is for the people, by the people, and with the people, all of those English, what has the democracy in Africa done for the African people? Has it improved our educational systems? No. Has it improved our food systems? No. Has it improved governance? No. Has it improved production systems? No. So the question that Africa should begin to ask now is that if it has not improved it, what should we do to improve it? And I feel that Paul Kagame is a very, very clear example. Benevolent dictators, nationalists, ultra-nationalists who believe in the African nation, Pan-Africanists. Why do you think that the West have ended up killing almost every fantastic African leader that we have? From the West, you have Thomas Sankara. From the East, you have Patrice Lumumba. You have the like of Amilcar Cabral, Eduardo Mondlane. You name them. Muammar Gaddafi, recent memory. Why do you think the West have always suffocated the best of Africa? It is because the best of Africa can create systems in Africa that takes care of the African people and our interests. Unfortunately, the democracy we currently operate is mostly fed and controlled by the West. And when that is the case, your democracy is a fallacy, it's a ruse, it's a fraud, not a system of government for the African people. Thank you.
Thank you for that contribution, Mr. Reston. In fact, I would have loved to ask you another question, but I know you have a very short time to spend here. You know,
don't worry, just bring the question. I'll answer it so that you can at least.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So you said that democracy has failed. But we can see what is going on in Senegal. How the Senegalese stood up and fought for their democracy. You know, my question, my own worry is, has there ever been a time the Nigerian people stood up to seek for good governance and actually play that role the people are expected to play in a democratic system? Have the Nigerians have they been a responsible citizen in this democratic system? Because it seems that the Nigerian people don't even understand what it is, what democracy is. Is it that we are not knowledgeable enough? Is that the deal? Is that the problem? Are we ignorant?
To an extent, yes. And the thing is this. Okay, let me bring you in on this to give you an extent that we're actually very ignorant. If you look at the Samoa deal that was in the news very recently, you see a lot of people are commenting and saying, no, there's no LGBTQ, there's no LGBTQ. But when you look at the language and you go back and look at the language that the West presents anytime they're bringing a day before you, you understand where their interest lies. And I'm going to connect it back to democracy and understand the literacy of our people. You see, nobody set the agenda for the United States and the West. Nobody does. They are bombing Gaza to pieces right now. Any nation in the world that would have done that would have been called war criminals. What is happening in Gaza today? Any nation in the world. Charles Taylor did not do that much when he was taken to the Hague. Several leaders, even Putin, did not do that much in Ukraine. when he was an ICC issue a warrant of arrest. But what happened? Because the Americans are the ones providing the bombs, the West are the ones providing the bombs, and Israel is their tool to drop those bombs on a defenseless population, killing women and children in thousands. What has happened? Every time that you bring that case before the International Criminal Court, the Americans are threatening the judges of the International Criminal Court. Is that democracy? Is that democratic? It is not. You know why? Because national interest supersedes any other system of government. So the first thing is our people first need to have national interest. Unfortunately, right, we live in a system where the lack of education kills historical context. If you read How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney, I always say that every African should read that book again and again and again. Whether you're in medicine, or you're in engineering, or you're in public service, read that book again and again and again. You will understand how the likes of USC, the popular USC, Nestle, and the rest you talk about today, how they were tools of slavery, tools of colonialism, tools to rape the African continent for their own interest. But how many of us knows? So when you have deals like the Samoa deal, or when you have the president talking about reform, look at just understand the reform that the current president is doing in context. Understand it in context. So let me give you one of the context. Do you know that the West accounts for 90% of all fuel subsidy in the world? As broke as they are, as broke as America are, they can always print dollars, right? As broke as Europe are, they are spending trillions of dollars in subsidies. But they will encourage you to remove subsidies in your country. Do you know why? Because they want you to keep remaining poor. They don't want you to develop and grow. Who told them? Who fought for climate change when the West were growing? Were the West concerned about climate change when they were growing? When they were growing, for them it was all about industrialization, productivity, and growth. Nobody cared about climate change. After they don't grow finish, they don't stand finish. Now they are interested in what? In climate change. Why? Because it is the I want to call it the generation of the African growth, right? Okay, but let me tell you the hypocrisy of that system. You're actually interested in climate change? No problem. We're good to go. Let all of us do it together. Then China overtook them with regards to electric vehicle. Now China is producing 10 million electric vehicles, and all of a sudden, the West that loves electric vehicle and loves climate change so much are now putting 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicle, isn't it? The same West who love climate change so much are now giving money to fossil fuel companies in the US. UK is spending 60 million euro. Europe is spending EU is spending 60 million euro to do what? To support exploration of coal in Africa and Asia. These guys love climate change so much. So you see, the lack of education of the African people means that they don't even understand some of these things that are happening. They don't understand that the foundation of growth is actually rural, it's actually structural, and it's actually local. And when it has to do with the people, nobody, I repeat, nobody must come between you and the growth of your community and your people. The West understand this, which was why they exported their multinational corporations to come and dominate our community so that they can report back. Dangote is struggling today because the Western companies have formed an oligarchy, a structure that is dominating the Nigerian oil industry. So Dangote is trying to break in and make the Nigerian economy stand. But what is he facing today? He's not only facing Western companies trying to bring him down, he's facing socio-economic internal saboteurs who are Nigerians, helping the West to kill its refinery. Because once its refinery goes, the Nigerian economy goes. They told us that it was going to take about 3 months or so to turn around the refinery in the 80s. And they convinced IBB to do what? To do turnaround maintenance, and they take IMF bank loan and then devalue the naira and do what? Import oil. How many years have we been importing oil from the West now? More than 30 years, isn't it? If not for Dangote, we would have continued. So it is that education that is important. Is that the people knowing that, look, wait, if these guys told us in the 80s that if we import from them and our refineries will work, our refineries did not work, we kept importing. 1976 was when Peugeot Automobile set up the assembly plant in Kaduna. Am I correct? 77, yes. 78. What is happening? That car plant did not produce. But the Chinese, went to China and knocked down part, is able to make innocent car. Has Pijo been able to make a made in Nigeria car? So the West will never, the lack of the knowledge and training is that the trying to do with Russia. The whole of Europe is trying to fight Russia. Look at what they're trying to do with China. Every time, sanction, tariffs. Look at what they're trying to do with Iran. Anytime you're trying to grow, they will try to bring you down. So it has to be, our people need to have that education. We lack that education to understand that if it is not all about the interest of your own people, there is no growth. But because we lack that understanding, we embrace their democracy, hook, line, and sinker. Have you gone to Asia? Look at the way the Asians do democracy. Sorry, Labour. Look at European democracy. Labour just won today. How many years have conservative been in power? No, it's not 14 years. That is how it is, that time that you can take to actually 10, 14 years. A president can actually get something done, isn't it? A party can actually sell an agenda. In Germany, how long was Angela Merkel the premier, the vice chancellor of Germany? How many years? More than about 16 years or so. Those are Europeans who understand stability as a source of economic structure that aids in political structure that aids in economic growth. Those are foundational. America don't grow finish now. So they can be doing for 4 years democracy. Nigeria, whenever started, they grow. Whenever I will come out from door, will they do 4 years democracy? It's madness. If we must do democracy, it must not be less than 6, 7 years tenure. And it has to be 2 years, at least 14 years. That case, you give a party 14 years of uninterrupted political system to be able to build something. That education is not there. And people don't have that education. They don't have that understanding. We are just being led in the head. It is exactly why we have struggled for so long. So you're right. We'd like the education to understand democracy and grow our people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Resnick. I have to sincerely let you go. I have another person who wants to join. I appreciate this your brilliant submission, and I hope next time if I invite you, probably you'll be available. Please stay tuned. Kindly like the channel. Thank you very much, sir. Have a nice weekend.
Yes. You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Yes, viewers, please kindly subscribe, kindly like the channel. Well, as it is, Nigerians, we need more knowledge so that our democracy will thrive. We need more knowledge so that our democracy will thrive. Otherwise, the West will continue to use us as a tool in Africa. The West, they have that hidden hand. They will continue to frustrate our government. I sincerely think the West can assist us, but I think they are just they are. Yes, welcome, Mr. Dorothy. Viewers, I have here with me a very astute, revolutionary political analyst. It's a young, vibrant Lagosian who has zero tolerance for corruption, provided you have any relationship with the corrupt people. We call them the establishment. This is a man who will be against you. He is ready to go all out. And I think in Africa, most especially in Nigeria, we need to copy this young man's mindset. Because we cannot say we want good governance and then we are supporting a man who is ready to dine with the establishment. Nobody rides on the back of a tiger and live to see the next day. Eventually, you become the tiger's meal, which simply means you'll be eaten. So, Mr. Dorothy, welcome to my channel. Welcome to the program. I'm so glad you're here with us. Yeah, can you hear me, Mr. Dorothy? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I know you are a very active citizen, and I would sincerely want you to pour everything out this moment, because there are so many Nigerians who are listening to us live, and of course, people will listen to the playback as the time goes. In Africa, Kenya and Nigeria happens to be the biggest democracy. In West Africa, Nigeria, who are supposed to be the giants, they have the biggest democracy. And in East Africa, we can see what the Kenyans are doing. They are demonstrating what a citizen has to do in a democracy. So for you, first and foremost, why do you think Africans have issue with maintaining democracy? Let's start with that. Mm.
Of responsibility when you say you on my door and say, hey, we're from the government, we want to educate all across Africa. They're like, no, these guys are power. Democracy is supposed to be. But like, and even if you go back,
Oh, thank you for that. I mean, the very common definition of democracy is the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And the common denominator in democracy is the people. But here you are blaming the government. I feel a human has that tendency to always do anyhow when he or she is not being checked. So the Nigerian people, I mean, unlike our counterparts in Kenya, they checked their president, Ruto, you know, and then the last speaker who I spoke with says that one other ingredient that makes democracy thrive is the people needs to be educated. So my question to you is, Mr. Drotin, why are the Nigerian people, despite facing this high level hardship, are quiet? Is it because we are not educated? Is it that we are ignorant? I mean, make me understand this thing, please.
if you say who are would tell you like a conversation, some of this is crumbling the economy. So it's not, even if you go and that we need. So it's not about we need to go and take care of the yeah, we need to take care of the street and all of those people that we have. System in but say, sir, this thing will beat you down, beat you to submission. So when a child has gone through primary school, bullying in secondary school,
Mm.
have any sort of social security. You want to play it safe because you have to have your children, you have that sort of social security, like what you know that if I'm going out, if I'm speaking up or something, this system that have any of you have a graduate in a trained slave. So it's not. But let me tell you something. If we have free people and they will vote against themselves, have you listened to go on platform? See the arguments that you will get. The educated Nigerians, Facebook, Twitter, the president of Nigeria. I like education is not the problem, but the content of the education people to challenge, from a very young age. Let them challenge their older ones at home. Let them challenge their parents. Let them challenge their primary school. Calm down. So, that we live in. So it is really not about.
Okay, lastly, Mr. Durotimi, we've spoken about the challenges, the issues. Lastly, my question is, what do the people do? What must they do to restore the glory of democracy? Because I believe if I ask you, which would you prefer we go back to military or we remain in this democracy? But what must the people do to restore the glory of democracy, as it were, in other countries? I mean, we can see what is going on in Senegal. We can see what is currently going on in Kenya and so many other Western democracies. We see how sweet and interesting it is. What must Nigerian people do to restore the glory of democracy? What must we do? Indeed, Mr. Dorotimi, Nigerians needs to talk less and do more now. Thank you for joining, Mr. Dorotimi. I really appreciate your contribution to the topic of today. I appreciate your time, and so apologies for the delay. It was network issues, but thank you for joining, by the way, and do have a nice day. I must let you go now. Bye. Thank you. All right. Yeah, okay, viewers, thank you for joining us. We've come to the end of our interview with our two special guests about Nigerians and the Nigerian people, that we must remain active if we want a democracy that works for us. In every country whereby the democracy works, the people are always active. We can see what is going on in Canada. We can see what is going on in Senegal. We can see what is going on in Kenya. Today, the government has no other choice other than work for the people. The Nigerians, we can no longer hide behind the excuse that because we have religious differences. No. In Kenya today, they are not homogeneous, but they all agree that they want good governance. Okay? So we must help push ourselves in the right direction. Democracy is for the people, and we must claim it. If we are quiet about it, the government will just do as they like. Okay? So we, the people, must understand this. We must use Kenya as a precursor, as a sample, as a template. And I believe that in the coming months, I think August or so, people want to go out there and protest against the government of the day. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong in that. And I support it, provided it's a peaceful protest. So thank you, viewers, for joining. Tomorrow, being Monday, we bring to you our street, a political analysis about Nigeria as a country. For now, we have to go. We say bye-bye. Thank you for joining. Do have a nice weekend.